Call this meeting to order. Mr. Mike Snell is going to do our pledge tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Snell.
Here comes Aaron.
Well, Mr. Odom, we're back for another, I guess, round two.
After Christmas.
I trust everybody had a good holidays and got plenty to eat in the whole 9 yards. So hopefully we're ready to go for, like I said, round number two. So, Mr. Odom, I'm going to turn it over to you now.
Okay, got the items on the consent agenda. Any questions on that? Any of you would like to? Chance to look at it. Here's some bids, the TSBA policy manual, and then some other contracts, that sort of thing.
Yes, the only question I had on the lockers, I think it's a third item on there. I'm just curious to know, let me get to it here.
Stewart's Creek
So-
High Lockers.
Yeah, what are the optional foot lockers? What are they?
They're just small lockers that set down and they could go in the football locker and places like that. So we always fit them in just in case places we can put them.
I don't really know that. I just noticed the difference in price on one of the other brands versus this brand. That's on the top two look fine, but the bottom one looked like there was a difference in price. That's the only reason I brought it up. It just caught my eye looking at it. So. Anybody else? We're on the consent agenda, Mr. Holliday.
Thank you, sir.
All right, I guess we'll do number 8 on Thursday. Number 9, old business.
Well, now, old business, this is the building program, possible projects through August 2016. At the Special Call Board of Education meeting on December 6, 2012, concerning the building program, a list of proposed projects was given to the board for review. Also, Joseph Binkley of Binkley Garcia Architects handed out schematics of the projects and gave an oral review of each at that meeting. The staff has prioritized the project, put them into possible projects through August 2016 spreadsheet for the board's final review and approval. And that would be this particular sheet that you have, 8.5 by 14. And the projects as we listed, we have not changed them since that meeting in December. Basically, if you'll remember, the LHS and SH Smyrna High bleacher ADA modifications, that was coming out of our own major capital fund project balance. So that was to be in compliance with ADA, and that we'd like to go ahead and start that this spring. Construction start in March of 13. Then we kind of get into the new projects, and the two new projects that we were proposing first is Blackman Middle Annex and Smyrna Primary Addition. I did give you, you have another sheet that I did email, and you've got a copy tonight, which shows the middle school projects. If you'll count, or it's our enrollment, but we've highlighted in the highlight marker the middle schools. One of the things that we've been asked a little bit is, do we really need addition to the middle school? Well, if you look at the highlighted ones there, Blackman Middle is 1,085. We typically build our middle schools, but for $850, we can go to 1,000. But typically, when you do, you start adding portables. So at some of these, that's over $850. We've already added portables to. So that's our issue. Christiana Middle has 822. Laverne Middle, 1051, Oakland Middle, 1035, Rock Springs Middle, 999, Rockville Middle, 881, Siegel Middle, 1003, Smyrna Middle, 966, Stewart's Creek Middle, 840, and Whitworth Buchanan, 709. So a number of these schools are already over the 850 that we proposed for them. So we like to have a little reserve capacity. So, but you get, somebody says, well, you got to fill them all up first, but you'd like to have some capacity there to go to. But you do not have additional capacity in close proximity to the area that's growing one of the fastest is the Blackman area. We just do not have a lot of extra capacity there. Because you have to go to Rockville Middle or something like that. Rockville Middle with 881 is very close to, a little bit over that 850. And if that expands at all, if you put some there, then you're soon going to have problems there. You'll be in portables there if you're not careful. Our proposal basically is that we think we need to do some additions at Blackman Middle. And you have to realize also that with those additions, you already have portables at Blackman Middle. So part of this construction that you're adding on to Blackman Middle will, in essence, just simply clear some of those portables. So it's not total growth there. Part of it is to catch up with where we've been. And Blackman Middle had 4, and we added a double wide, so there should be 6 classroom spaces already being used at Blackman Middle School. So that's what we're talking about there. The other one, addition for immediate would be the Smyrna Primary Addition. And that there's some things there that just really needs to be done. The library is an area that for a long time has not been adequate. That school does have a rather high population, free and reduced numbers. They have Title I, other programs that they need to do to support that. And I think several of you have been down and looked at the building. I mean, lately you've gone down. I know she invited most everyone to come and take a look. So you know what I'm talking about, the need there. Interestingly enough, I think I sent you an email that Thurman Francis is already receiving students, elementary students, from the area behind the Smyrna High School. So I was a little bit surprised at that. And it could be that we'll have to rezone some of that area because Thurman Francis really doesn't have much capacity in the non-magnet program. Very quickly you can find yourself there having to add a teacher, which would be a $50,000, $60,000, where you might be able to take that area to Smyrna Primary or something and keep from having to employ a lot of additional people. But that's one that's been waiting for a long time. The other one in Roy Waldron Edition, and that's because if you will look at Roy Waldron, taking a look at theirs, and again, looking back at the sheet, Roy Waldron currently has 740 students there, and Laverne Lake, which is the other elementary there, Laverne Lake has 903. So that's again a large elementary school in those two. And Roy Waldron, because of the number of portables there again, looking at an ability to try to get more of those students in the building. Again, that's another area that has relatively high poverty, but Roy Waldron has 6 classroom spaces in portables also. Now, some of that addition was to try to add them a stage and some other things that we have in other elementary schools that when we go back in there, but that was the addition for that. The other David Uri renovation, of course, that's been since the mid-1970s since you've looked at that one. And so what he's looking at there is roofing. We'll use the part with major capital projects there, but Gary went over that one with you before in that one also. And then we did place in there those Laverne High and Smyrna High bleachers. At that time, which has been considered from our budget for a long time. Down to when we start getting out to 15, 16, the Eagleville High Addition Phase 1. Now, one reason that we placed that 3 years out was because at that time we didn't know what was going to happen with the sewer situation. But it looks like Eagleville is about to get that sewer. And that may be something that has to be revisited too, if you would elect to change a priority on that or something we could. It's just how much the commission would be willing to fund. Can you put Eagleville with one of the others above, or will we have to prioritize some of that if you decide to move Eagleville up? The point I want to make is we basically do not have a real capacity issue at Eagleville right now. Because you can look at your middle school numbers basically at Rockville Middle and all for that particular area. The projects that we have before them, looking at the Roy Waldron, the Blackman Middle, maybe a little bit of Smyrna Primaries, also would accommodate additional students. So we prioritized a little bit higher our ability to build spaces that will have more students. It's kind of interesting to see. I hope you noticed also in the sheet that I sent you that at the end of the fourth month, from 2011 to 2012, Rutherford County grew by 1,000 students. And we've helped that, CO, through this period, and that would be through the 12th of December. So you've got a growth of 1,000, which is like a school.
Sure.
So it makes me start saying we've got to look at spaces, because portables are expensive and not the thing that we need to do.
It looks like these apartment complexes are coming online and affecting us immediately.
They are.
And there's several going up and opening up within the county presently,
Right.
and more on the table apparently.
That's part of the issue with tonight when we discuss the Blackman Elementary is basically the growth of apartments and when they're opening up one every 3 weeks, another section of it. So that's changing the numbers there. But again, so that the Siegel High edition, another thing that caught my attention really when I did this the other day, I don't know whether you picked that up or not, but did you notice that Rutherford County High Schools grew by 470 students in 1 year? On the far right-hand column, if you look at this sheet, I did a little area totals with the schools and that sort of thing. That's just really phenomenal growth. Now, part of that can be attributed to Central Magnet is drawing some more students, but as I told the high school principals today, Central Magnet's not just drawing students from the other high schools. We're apparently getting students from private schools, from home schools, from other things too, because a 1 year growth of 470 is a lot for the high school. Now, the senior class at Central Magnet this year is about 75 students, so you will see one more year of a pretty good growth in numbers there also. So that's why when we talk about the Siegel High edition, probably where we got Stewart's Creek and all, we can handle some of that number. Interestingly enough today, Dirk Ash at Laverne High said with the rezoning, he received his numbers that he would get for next year coming into his freshman class, and he said it's still 503. Wasn't that right, Mr. Zago?
Yes, sir.
He said 503 is the numbers that he has now that were not impacted by the zone. And so they're seeing large numbers moving up into the high school. So I say we're going to see another year of high school growth there too. We did not place, basically when we're looking at 2016, an elementary or a middle school, and when we get out to kind of that fifth year, the priorities may change. And exactly where that may need to be, we think it's probably somewhere west of the Blackman area, or it could even be as far down as close to Laverne. But I think we have to keep our options there. We know we got a little bit of capacity at Whitworth Buchanan. Do not have much capacity at all remaining at Oakland Middle. In fact, we're already putting portables there, and Siegel Middle. So you've got some issues in that area, although it's not growing as quickly as some of the others. So it's a kind of an educated guess. Basically, is the priorities that we look at, but it's based on, first of all, trying to create extra capacity.
Just back up on Smyrna Primary Edition. In that 2.5 million, what all are you including in that?
You wanna review that for him, Gary, just quickly, kinda what you included in that? It was library, some cafeteria renovation to eat, you know, and then some classrooms, 6 classrooms.
6 classrooms,
On the back
library,
end,
Yeah.
the back side.
cafeteria going from 1 to 2 lines.
New library and media center, cafeteria, serving line and dining expansion,
Yeah.
and then, new entrance canopy, and, 7 new classrooms
On the back.
Said 6.
On the back of it.
on the back of it.
So basically, you're pretty well doing everything that they expressed having interest in.
Yes.
And that changes that front entrance to be a better security.
It does. That
Lobby.
media center comes out front, and that whole situation with the canopy and everything will be remodeled inside there. It will increase the security at the building.
And I don't think we've done anything major at that facility in quite some time, have we? Other than, I think we did something in the gym.
We did new ceiling, we did new heating system in there, we did some new floors, did the gym floor, did several things over the last 10 years.
Will that also put a drop-down ceiling in the hallways, this renovation? Okay.
No, it won't, and there's a reason, there's just so much stuff up there in those ceilings that it's just virtually impossible to get them high enough to, without changing a bunch of stuff in the ceiling.
I'm not accustomed to seeing the Laverne and Smyrna High School bleacher edition broken into the 3 pieces the way it is. Is there a reason that it's presented that way tonight?
Yes, the first one is the ADA modifications for the wheelchairs, because that's immediate for us. The other adds additional seating, basically. So the other breakdown that you see there for restrooms and concessions and all, for August of 16 is extra capacity there.
So there is-
And August 15 is some bleacher capacity there, but the one in August of 13 is the wheelchair, the ADA modification.
So there is a method or a proposal that the ADA concern can be addressed by itself without any additional seating?
Well, we're putting in some additional seating on the visitor side. There's 4 rows that go in there so that we have the ADA seating with the ramp up to it, and then a couple of rows for people who are interested or with those disabled Americans.
Okay.
One thing just look at this whole sheet right here, what I just mentioned, Mr. Clark, Mr. Odom, on 16, 17 projects, where you get the Eagleville High addition right there, possibly moving it up to 15, 16. Basically, you'd be reversing those 2 figures, the bottom line figures. I'm just looking at that because I think Mr. Flores passed everybody out something here tonight that has to deal with the sewer.
Yes, sir, because there's going to be an announcement on Wednesday, January 30th. And it's not apparently an informational meeting, it's an announcement. And they're pretty closed-mouthed about it presently, but I'd say this is an excellent sign that the city and the rural development have come to an agreement, and I'd say sewer is a pretty foregone conclusion. And if that is the case, which I believe it is, I believe that community will explode. And
That's
we'll do-
new information from when we looked at this the 6th of
Right.
December, and we didn't know when it was
Right.
open, so that is new information for us.
Yes,
Absolutely.
and I'd really have a concern for that community. It's a great place to live, and I think the only thing that has held it back from continuing to grow with retail and residential has been the sewer. And it's easy access to, you know, to I-24 and to 840. And I just see it as a, you know, as a growth in the growth plan presently.
Like you, I've been told that, you know, when this comes in, that we're gonna see a boom out there we've not seen in years. And to be prepared to put a new school out there, that it's just phenomenal what they're getting ready to do, so.
Mr. Chairman.
How do, go
I was just gonna ask Mr. Clardy, is there any possible way, the way the Laverne High School bleacher has been divided into like a three-phase type of application? Is there any way to divide the Smyrna Primary Edition into any type of phases, specifically the front awning and entrance for that security concern?
We haven't really looked at it like that, but it could be probably divided. I'll just have to take a look at it and see. Haven't really given it any thought at this point.
Okay. If it's not too unreasonable to return an answer on that by Thursday.
It's typically a little cheaper once you bring a contractor in to do it, so it's probably over a span of time cost you a little bit more. You know,
It's a fairly small job anyway, so
may not be that much.
one of the big problems with a small job is you have just almost as much mobilization on a small job as you do a large job, and the same overhead or general conditions on it. It has a tendency, when you do break it in, to run the cost up some, but other than that, it could possibly be done.
Because if you break it into three different sections or would you have to rebid those other sections again?
Well, we could break it into 3 different sections, go ahead and bid them all.
Okay.
And in the 3 sections is alternates, 1, 2, and 3, and then pick the ones that we want to do or hold on the ones we don't want to do, and then we'd have to rebid them
Okay.
when the time comes to do them.
you're gonna get a cheaper bid doing it all at once,
Right.
so.
I guess the other thing I would like to bring up is a concern for Blackman Middle, you know, becoming such a large middle school. And I guess the difficulty is we certainly need it, and the other issue is, you know, do you want to have a middle school that large, and do you want to have an annex? And, you know, which kind of flies in the face of our security protocols that we've tried to enact over the last few years. So, you know, there's just a couple of things I really don't like about it, and population's one, and taking away the security aspect, but we have portables, so we've taken away that security aspect in that situation anyway. So it's just one of those things that, you know, the answer is not very palatable, but leaving it as is not, you know, we're not able to do that. So I really am really torn on creating a middle school that large, but.
We have 6 portables there already, so 6 classrooms virtually would go into that to reduce the numbers that you have. As we looked at when the new middle school might be built, if you get out 4 to 5 years, I don't see any way of holding that long. I'm with Mr. Blair. It's kind of fundamentally against my belief that a middle school needs to be that large. Although in Wilson County, I have a grandson that's 1,300, 1,400 already. So I mean, it's one of those things that I really wouldn't want it 1,500 or so, but I'm not sure that we won't have to go to a 1,300 or something with this. You got 6, like I say, already there. If we build this other, gives us just a little bit of breathing time in that area for something that'll allow that growth through Veterans Parkway a little bit. We can pick up some going down 99 and all, which much of that can be done at Rock Vale too, and do that. But it just buys you some time. It's basically the way that I see it.
And I'm not objecting to the recommendation, but, you know, it's problematic at best.
On this Blackman Middle addition, how many seats are you talking about adding?
How many classroom spaces was that in 21? And your 6th grade is 1 to 25, basically with your ratio, and that's what you were going to put there. Mostly 6th grade in that section is what he was trying to do. And you can tell again from this sheet that you have in 6th grade at Blackman Middle School, 369 students right now. So that's at least, 13, what's 1 to 25, so that's 12, 13, 14, 15 classrooms of that are there now. Basically of the 21, 15 are there.
There's also 4 science labs, so it would
Right.
be a total of 25 classes.
Okay.
Mr. Tackett?
I haven't crunched the numbers, so to speak, but in my humble mathematical brain, growing at least 1,000 every year, I don't see how we're going to get away from building something sooner than what we've got. I mean, the thoughts have been 5 years only building 2 new schools, and that's hard to say, only 2 schools, but I don't know how that's going to happen. Now, all that said, we've got a county commission that has been, I think, fair. I think we've tried to be fair with them, but I'm not sure we're aggressive enough with this building program based upon space that we're going to have.
Yes, sir.
So I guess, Thursday night, I'm just gonna throw something out. I think county commission's wanting something by, you say January?
February,
February.
at least, at the latest kind of.
So, when we come in Thursday night, if you wanna have more discussion on this, or go ahead and put it off to the next meeting, I think it's February, 5th or something like that.
There's one at the end of January we actually have, I think, one more even then.
Is there another one?
February 4th,
February 7th is the next one, okay.
5th, and 7th.
Would you be comfortable, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Odom, with making a decision on the 7th and give us some time to come look at this and ask some more questions?
Jeff, when is the Health and Ed Committee in February for County Commission? You know, it's the,
Health, you talking about the,
we're just trying to meet their schedule, Mr. Blair, basically.
Don't they meet like the 3rd?
It should be Tuesday, February 26th.
Okay.
okay.
So if we delayed it to the 7th or whatever, we would be fine.
Well, I think so. What I'm hearing from them basically is because of the cost of Stewart's Creek High, they were concerned that we didn't do a total new building in 25 or 30 million right now. And that's what I was hearing on that side, because we can ask for it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that position that they have from where they sit. We add a little bit to Black Middle. I'm not comfortable there, but I'm not overcome by that, frankly. I think the security will be better there with what we'll do than what they have right now with the portables, frankly. But that's 4,000 to 5,000 students, and there's nothing close to that in what we're adding here, I don't think. So,
The Blackman area last year on your sheet again with the counts grew by 281. That'd be Blackman Elementary, Blackman Middle, Blackman High School. That's basically the growth of those three together was 281 in a year.
I guess that's what we get for having a great education program and great principals in that area, so. I guess it's results.
Board have any ideas, strong feelings one way or another? You wanna try to decide something Thursday, or?
You know, this is such a critical decision. If Mr. Odom doesn't think it's a problem, I would recommend we wait till that February 7th meeting. It gives us a little chance to eyeball it a little longer and ask some more questions and, you know.
Add the pending announcement from the Eagleville area on January 30th. I certainly echo Mr. Blair's feelings.
If everybody's good with that, Ms. Marks, let's put that on February 7th. And Thursday night, if anybody else has any questions in regards to it, we'll hit them again, but we won't vote on anything.
Yes, sir.
If everybody's in agreement with that. Anybody else have any questions on any of this? All right, Mr. Odom,
Number 10.
number 10.
Number 10 is facilities. Blackman Middle School baseball improvements. Mr. Will Shelton has requested permission to construct a restrooms concession stand building at the sports fields in Blackman Middle School with a construction estimate of $25,000. The project will be funded through a $10,000 grant from the Richard Siegel Foundation and other funds raised by the Baseball Boosters Club. There are other phases to come, including installing electricity and water, landscaping, and a thank you board dedicated to the sponsors who have contributed to the project. The project plans and proposal have been reviewed by Staff Attorney Angel McLeod, and along with a firm commitment from Mr. Shelton to upgrade the existing softball playing fields, were found to be acceptable from a gender equity bias. And this, the girls softball plays at Blackman High, and I think they actually prefer that there, but this would be an area with the restrooms and all that could be used by both of those. So that's part of the gender equity that we're talking about there.
I don't know if everybody's had a chance to read their tab on that, but they pretty well got it laid out. They've got it laid out well, basically how they're doing all of it, so. Any questions? Number 11, financial matters.
This is proposed change to the cell phones provided to staff as part of the school safety program. The board has provided cell phones to principals, assistant principals, school offices, and some central office staff as part of our school safety program since 2007. We are proposing that this group of employees be given the choice between choosing to continue with our current plan, which averages about $48.50 per month for principals and assistants, or to use their personal phones and receive a $35 per month reimbursement upon presentation of copies of their personal cell phone bills. And the proposal is this, because the Nextel radio function ends in June, and that was the push-to-talk function, if you remember some of that. There are areas where Sprint Nextel coverage is not the best available coverage. We literally have some people in the Eagleville area and some of the other areas that even though we furnish them a telephone, I mean, they could go outside sometime and get it, but it just did not pick up inside their building. So that was an issue with them, and that's why many of them started carrying, again, their own phone. And staff prefer to carry just one phone, or really prefer an iPhone or other type phone. Anyone choosing the reimbursement option would have to agree to carry a phone with voice, email, text capabilities, and the weather app that would function as well as for his or her school. We still see these phones as our main method of communication during an emergency. We budget $65,000 per year for these staff phones in the schools. This proposal would save $8,000 to $10,000 based on Mr. Sandvig's survey. 50% to 75% of the principal and assistant principals indicated they would change to their personal phones if we had a reimbursement plan available. The school office cell phones wouldn't change. If a principal's school activity fund pays for his phone, the $35 reimbursement would be made to the school. No reimbursements would start until the current Sprint phone has been closed. So instead of carrying around two phones, or maybe a phone that has better coverage, a number of principals have spoken to us and said, we prefer to buy our own phone, carry our own phone, if you'll help us in the cost of that.
Where did the $35 come from? How was that decided upon?
We're trying to save a little money.
I guess I would have a concern that, as far as on my phone, I buy so much time, and as much as they would be on their phone potentially for school business, you know, I would be concerned that $35 really would not reimburse them for what they actually do.
It would not pay for the phone for just school, because we obviously, you can see what we're paying now.
Yes, sir.
But then that's their personal phone, nights, weekends, other times. We basically use that phone, tornado warnings drills, weather warnings drill, other safety concerns that we have. So you may go several days and never directly use it,
Okay,
you know, for a school purpose.
okay.
It's not a daily thing that we communicate, because typically within their building, now sometimes they'll call each other if the assistant principal's down the hall or that sort of thing. Some are still carrying walkie-talkies basically within their building. They just prefer that than go to the cell phone. So this is some compromise. I'm sure they'd be glad to have more, but I mean, it's just a kind of a figure really out of the air for some of that,
And
to
I
stay
just-
within the budgets. but
And I didn't understand how much they would use their cell phone in the course of their duties each day either, so. Mr. Tackett?
It'd be very minimal.
Okay.
I would,
Yeah, it's not-
unless life has changed a lot, because most of what you do at school will be on landline, as far as your calls are concerned. Receiving phone calls from central office due to emergency. I mean, I know when I was there, my phone calls typically came to the school phone as opposed to a cell phone. So I don't see,
Okay.
I don't see $35 worth of use per month that would be school time, so to speak. So I think that's very fair.
You would know better than I.
I'd ask to understand a little better, the school office cell phones wouldn't change. Explain.
There's one that sits in the office, there's one Miss Joyce's office, and the others that we use, that if we did an all-call or notice to everybody about pending tornado or some other function like that we do, that we could communicate with people very quickly in that. And so there's one that sits there because typically the secretary or somebody's in that office, that phone would sit there very close to that desk. There's one at each school office.
So while the service around it, with the Nextel going away and the Direct Connect, the two-way communication, that service may change, but what's not going to change is any type of reimbursement or anything like that. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that's not a reimbursement cost. That's just one we're providing in that office.
Okay, but the physical piece of equipment will continue to get updated and be compatible. What I don't want is the text alerts to go out or something like that, and you're trying to read it off of a 2002 phone that is not as applicable to the technology. So is that addressed?
We've maintained those all along.
We have not put smartphones in there, but as far as telephone and text,
Okay.
they're fine.
All right.
Anybody else? Number 12.
Number 12 is the budget calendar update. The county commission has approved the 2013-14 budget calendar. The dates for the school board budgets have been set. The commission's budget committee will be finalizing meeting times and the dates for review other parts of 2013-14 budget. So after that, you have a list of dates. Mr. Hodge asked that we go ahead and build some in. You asked for additional participation in the budget and development, so there's additional dates in there to meet as a board before you actually meet with the county commission. So these are proposed dates based on the information we have now that kind of meshes meetings for us in preparation for meeting the joint session with the budget committee of the county commission and the statutory requirements for those dates. So it's additional dates, mainly information for you there if you approve those dates.
I'll just say I appreciate Mr. Sandvig working that up and giving us this overview of basically how it's gonna work, so. And I just want Ms. Michaels to put it on, give us some kind of idea with some dates, so everybody put it on the calendars. And, you know, we may get along through here and as a board, we may decide we may not need one of them. So, and Mr. Sandvig may say we need an extra one, I don't know. But as of right now, we'll try to work what we got, what she's got laid out, so I appreciate you doing that.
He cannot predict sometimes when he gets his revenue estimates, because when the legislature's in session, when they go, you know, until they arrive at some decision there, your estimates are off until you know what it is. So that's what drives it along.
Number 13.
Number 13 is the Blackman Elementary School rezoning. You want to come up, Mr. Davis? Basically, I'd like to say some things that kind of for our public that may be watching over TV or something tonight. They're looking at it. One of the issues that we have, if you look at Blackman Elementary's numbers, roughly 1,108 students at Blackman Elementary, and they grew this year by 103. Well, when you're in an elementary school, grades K through 3 is a 1-to-20 ratio. And when you get to 4th and 5th, you're 1-to-25 ratio. So if you look at that growth in 1 year, we're talking about 4 to 5 classroom growth. And I'm just simply saying we can't handle another 4 to 5 year classroom growth at Blackman Elementary. The issue that we're beginning to have now are infrastructure issues. It's simply the time to start lunch, feeding the students, safety issues, and that sort of thing. So we're proposing that we better utilize, since Brown's Chapel still has some reserve capacity, and in the number that you're kind of looking at here this year, we have 667 there. They actually lost a few between last year and this year at Brown's Chapel. I think that area will develop some, but we have some capacity there to transfer some students, especially in the newer developed areas, out to Brown's Chapel. It'd be a transportation issue, but not that far away. New school for people that's involved with that. Many of these students that could be affected by this transfer are also city school students. So unlike many of you county students, they have actually two options probably. Either Rutherford County School or Musselburgh City School. You know, they can go one of two ways. But we just, the option of simply placing additional portables at Blackman Elementary, we just beyond that. we just cannot do that now. The total number of portables there, she's got 5, and you got 7, at least 7. Is that right? 7 classroom spaces there. So, you know, when you look at that, you're simply, if we could move 130 or so, you kind of get you out of that portable, but that doesn't account for growth next year. So she very well could gain some of that back. So Mr. Morgan's going to kind of show you a couple of things here. One, do you have, can you flash up that city zone? Just quickly kind of start with that. One of the things that I'll have you notice, and you kind of look at the city zones and where the city limits are, you see those white spaces in there? So what we have in a lot of the city map, the city zoning map, kind of intermeshed with the city zones or our zones. When you look at those white areas. So as far as when you look at an area, we run our transportation buses through an area. I mean, we pick up city and county both too. So, but those kids are not always eligible for city school. So between the two of us, but anyway, I wanted to show you that one. Would you kind of now flash up some of the area that we are proposing this evening for you to look at? The area that we're proposing for you to look at, okay, let me make that a little larger, is this particular area that we're talking about here that's already shaded and kind of the red hash marks. this moves roughly the 130 students, if we look at that, and you have a separate copy for you to look at and study in more detail. The blue numbers on there tell you how many students in that. Despite the fact there's a very large area over near Medical Center Parkway, there are not many students over there. If you kind of look at this lower area down at this side, you see 2 students. So even though you got geographic area, that's not an area that will help us much with numbers. One of the growingest areas is really, if you look at Integra Creek, right there, that is the newest development that fronts on Manson Pike. And Mr. Morgan and I did visit that and talk about, that's the one that they're opening about a new section of it about every 3 weeks. There's a new section. It is some single bedroom, but typically 2 and 3 bedroom apartments. They are targeting, basically they told us, people from Nissan, Amazon, that sort of thing. It's a beautiful complex, beautiful apartment area, gated community, very nice. But again, that's an area, if they continue to build out and it grows, all of that would go to Blackman Elementary, unless we look at, and they're not really that far from going down Manson Pike from Brown's Chapel. So that's one of the areas. The other area there's, and you get very close to, show them where Blackman Elementary is real quickly, see, right down here. So as you kind of go up Fortress Boulevard up there, the other area, the apartments, really is that part of that Puckett Crossing and that development out in that area. So that would be our recommendation, which would move about 130 something students. Now, some of those may choose, rather than move, may choose to go to a city school. That's certainly their option. They may elect to do that. Do I think this is a permanent solution? Not at all. But you see, if you take the number and you move, and you were to have 130 move, and we look at Brown's Chapel, and there's 660 or 70, then you've got them at 800, which is about at their capacity too. But you still have a large number at Blackman Elementary. So the city is looking at property to build an elementary school. But even if we started now, it's going to take them probably, I doubt that they could get it in place for 2015, probably 13, 14, maybe 2014, to do that. So it's going to be an issue for 2 or 3 years any way we look at it. And this will be a temporary relief. We have in there, you notice again, in one of our long-range building plan, another elementary. If we can do some of the things at Roy Walter and some of the things that we had growth there, that area, even though it's still growing, is somewhat landlocked. We've talked about that by the lake, by Davidson County, by the airport area and property. So we're not likely to see huge amounts of growth there. But I do think we still have elementary growth in the Blackman area, out towards Rockvale and some areas like that when that begins to develop. There's a whole area up there that show them off of Puckett Station up there that all of that's stubbed out. There's not any houses there. Mr. Morgan, you show them that one right in there. Much of that area right in there, if you've driven by there, you can even see it stubbed out of the ground. It's planned, it's the utility, the infrastructure is basically there. It's just the economy for where that would be, when it would be opened up and grow. And so again, we looked at that and thought, maybe we need to look at some of that future growth as Brown's Chapel too, because if that happens within 1 to 2 years before anybody can get a school built, that might need to consider going to Brown Chapel also. The tough situation here is for all of us is that you're getting very close to being inside of Blackman Elementary. Literally, you get to the top of that hill, you can see Blackman Elementary, kind of from the area you're talking about. But the issue is that there's been so many building permits in close proximity to the Blackman complex that we're having to, for zoning to try to distribute the students, we're having to come closer and closer to that school. You ran into this with Blackman High School. It's some of the very same issues that we're talking about. It's just high density development in close proximity to schools, that are really already full.
That Puckett Station right there, how many houses will that area hold?
I don't know how many it'll hold. I just got the master plan the other day, and it is subject to change, of course. I would say out of the lots that they have of open and available, Mr. Snow, would you say about maybe half of them were built out on that side of the road, the more expensive houses?
Yes, if you went in the back way, then there was the other half.
Or what about out there on the main road?
Out on Manson Pine or Fortress?
Fortress, going towards the schools.
Well, the area that I guess I would be concerned with next would be right up here on the corner of the new Exxon gas station, I believe it's called. an
Right,
Exxon.
right there on the corner.
It's right
Right.
there, directly across from it, and all the way down Manson Pike. If you look on either side of the road, the bigger acreage tracts are all for sale.
Yeah, I'm just talking about this area right in here, it's all stubbed out,
This one,
all down through here.
I actually had asked about that area maybe 2 years ago now from not the developer, but the people that are running those townhomes that sit on the corner, and there may be maybe 10 or 15 units there. But about 8 or 9 years ago, when they built those units, was about when all the turmoil happened in our financial infrastructure, and they decided not to build the rest of what would have been townhouses throughout the Stonecrest development there. So yes, they're sitting vacant. There's no service road, but it's all gravelled out. You can, of course, see the stubs, but that I know of, there's no
You don't
direct
think,
involvement at the moment.
you don't think that's something coming down the pike anytime soon?
I would see it being developed very easily. It's ready to go.
I guess where I'm going with this is, and I know you're not able to answer my question, but if you build houses in there, I mean, I don't know if it's set for just condos, houses, or what. You know, how, if you were to build in there, how's that gonna influx you?
Well, I think any building in that area is an impacts us. I mean, literally. I mean, I'm just hoping the city would kind of go ahead with that other elementary school, and the two of us in sharing the numbers begin to build a little bit of capacity there. But I think anything could happen here, but we just know, as it stands now, that we've really got issues with the numbers. You'll see some areas in here where we went, Mr. Snell and I have looked at it from a transportation also standpoint too. You'll see an area like in Meadowland up here, kind of where see some of that's just wide open, only 4 students there. You see where that's not red hatched. That could open back on Brinkley Road and all, because it's not even developed. So you've got some areas there that you see some numbers in. It's a block of area, but it's just not developed yet, but could very quickly. Again, I think this is nothing much more than a short-term patch. Just to be honest with you, it's short of building another elementary school. That's your issue.
Mr. Oldby, if you take the 130 and put them at Browns Chapel, that will fill Browns Chapel.
It's got them up to that 800 mark, so you're up to what we normally consider an elementary school. You go much above that, you're going to be looking at portables there.
Okay. So I was wondering how many kids west of Veterans Parkway in the Blackman Elementary zone? 130.
We talked about that, the transportation issue, the number of miles and the transportation issue there is a tough one because of your distance and all of that. You can pick up more there. We didn't choose to recommend it simply because of the distance, Mr. Nipper.
Right.
And the other problem is when you look at our Rockvale Elementary, when you start looking at that, you think about putting some there. They already have, 820.
Right.
So we just didn't have another option there. You have to go all the way around. Barfield is over, and Christiana Elementary, you just finished adding on to addition there. So we don't have anything in an arc in that area to pick up additional elementary students.
Right. My thinking was if we could pull some of those she's got 90 and I got 130 in that area. To Brown's Chapel, that would ease Blackman Elementary a little bit. But you're right, I mean, you would have to maybe put a portable out there or something, I'm not sure. The transportation.
The hatch marks was about 130 to 138. I mean, you just,
Right.
the numbers change a little bit all along.
Just no easy way to get from there
Right.
to there.
Right,
That's
but
why
looking
we
at-
kind of look
yeah.
at the transportation.
Yeah, straight
It's almost as turn.
That's a time and cost factor also. Plus, you kind of get north of that area, we get into the Stewart's Creek. Basically, we've owned Stewart's Creek Middle, Stewart's Creek High, Stewart's Creek Elementary. You're kind of going that way for those. But they're basically not in Blackman, a lot of those north of that anyways.
Right.
They're in Stewartsboro, Stewart's Creek area.
Do you know why we had a drop of 26 this year?
I do not. I don't mean I couldn't say, but during that same time period, you know, I do not know. You have some minus and some plus in there. Just the net came out 1,000. That area has not developed quickly out there because it's still a lot of farmland right around Brown's Chapel. Just as the economy turned south, I mean, we actually built that, if you remember, and some of the ones proposing to develop that area actually shared some of the costs with our sewage treatment system, if you remember at the time, with the intent later of developing that. And then the economy changed, and so basically they are on hold for development, but I think if it changes, they will be developing there.
Nobody likes to rezone.
I
but,
know, it's our most
uh,
unpleasant thing to do.
Unfortunately, sometimes we just don't have any other options other than to move students around.
As Mr. Tackett said, a little bit, you know, last year we had 500 and something at our lowest point in growth, and I really anticipated this year we'd probably see 500 to 600, somewhere in that. Again, I didn't think the economy turned around that much, so 1,000 just really kind of breaks the mold of what you expect. But again, a lot of those are high school, and I really truly believe we have a number of people for economy, for the scores that we have, or performance we have, that are really coming back to Rutherford County Schools. So I think it's not only building this year that played into that.
Sort of what I've looked at and talked to Mr. Odom about, and anybody that wants to do anything different, let me know. I definitely think we gotta do something. And, what I was, asked Ms. Michaels to look at is possibly having another separate meeting just on this, and then having a public hearing, possibly out at Brown's Chapel. But the one thing I want to make sure we do, and discussed with Mr. O, I want to make sure that we get the word out to all the Blackman Elementary that may be affected based on what we're looking at. So, you know, like I said, I think it's just a temporary deal, but the way things are looking right here, I don't think it's going to get any better. And you can sit here and look at Rockville Elementary, for example. You can't do nothing there. You had an increase. Can't do nothing down at Stewart's Creek. So, you know, we're really into a predicament. We got to do something. So, I'm just curious to know, Ms. Ford's here. You had an increase of 103 this year. What'd that do to your lunch periods?
Would you come to the microphone, Ms. Ford, and people on TV can also hear you. Okay.
Sorry about that, but good evening to you. We start lunch at 10:20, and we're finishing lunch at 10 minutes to 1.
Now, having that additional 100 students, what did that actually do to you? I mean, as far, did you have to start earlier or end later, or?
We started early, we put on 10 minutes earlier, and then we tacked on about 15 minutes on the end.
Okay, to accommodate that additional 100.
Yes, sir.
so.
And also to accommodate those, they were gracious enough, Mr. Odom was gracious enough to, I'm the only elementary school in Rutherford County that has 2 music teachers, in order to accommodate that growth. We have our guidance counselors, they're on roving carts because they don't have a room to go to, and one of the music teachers is on a cart. And so we had to add in all of those just to accommodate teachers to get rotation periods.
She's used just about every space. If you haven't been there, she'd be glad to show you out there. You'll be surprised where classes are being conducted in that school.
You don't have any nook and crannies left.
There are no more nooks and crannies except for my office, and I guess someone can have that if they need it.
Well,
Yeah.
she actually tutors students herself.
Sure.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
give her that
Sure.
credit today. I know for a fact that she brings students in, tutors them herself that have needs.
Anybody else got any questions?
Well, I think it's worth noting that any of these schools that we have where they're portables, I'm very confident that the nooks and crannies are being used.
They're being
And
used.
those are not the best educational spaces.
Amen.
We went through Smyrna Primary and see through the Title I programs that they have the teachers available, they have the staff available, they don't have the space available to do the kind of things educationally that are best for kids. And, I've seen classes on stages and corners of gymnasiums and so forth. And I appreciate what folks do, because you do what you have to do.
You do. And the
But
pleasure is ours.
I think when we recognize that schools have this many portables, that they not only have educational spaces and portables, that may not be the absolute best situation we'd like to have, but they've also got others that are already there.
Definitely so.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Ms. Ford.
All right, has anybody got any more questions in regards to this? I guess back to what my original thing was, is that okay with everybody to have another special call meeting on, to basically try to iron something out on this and then go to a public hearing?
I think so.
Yes, sir.
That's what we'll do then. All right, what do we got here next? General discussion?
I haven't, other than hearing a blurb that the governor has rolled out his recommendation for the voucher. I don't know to what extent or if he's outlined anything, but of course I know hearing that was extremely troubling, and we certainly need to be in touch with our local legislative delegation to combat what I think is a real hit to the public education system.
I agree, I think that we've got resolutions going down to everybody too, I believe. Okay, so they should be getting those here in the next couple of days, I guess. So each board member needs to make sure they get that signed before you leave.
And we need to reach out and touch them personally, either by phone, by email, preferably one-on-one, to let them know how we opposed, this initiative, because it's not good for public schools. It is not. I'll coin the phrase of, I think the chairman of the Sumner County school system, I think he called it the Private School Restoration Act or something like that, or so it, using public funds to go to.
I did listen to the discussion yesterday between the governor and Jeb Bush, and that in Florida, where they did some of this voucher, it was not actually funded with public funds. It was with corporations and other things. They provided vouchers and all from sources other than just the public school fund. But Governor Haslam said that his proposal would be to use public school funds. So that was a difference in what Jeb Bush said yesterday, if that's true.
Very disappointing.
In that one-on-one contact with one of our legislators, it was encouraged to me that one of the focal points is that there seems to be no evidence that a voucher system increases achievement. In one respect, that is insulating for Rutherford County because our achievement is as high as it is, and yet at the same time, in areas outside of our state, when as a high achieving system, we may be called on to share an opinion, and the response is, well, it really won't affect you because you have high achieving schools or something of that nature. It seems like the legislation may be bent in a direction of low achieving schools that would have that option. The problem is that there really is no evidence that achievement is improved by the voucher system. If we have low achieving circumstances, we can reassign that low achievement, but we don't see evidence of improved achievement. Also, up in my end of the county, Dawn White, it's worth noting that she has a rather critical appointment to the Education Committee in the House. And so as we reach out, every legislator is important, but Dawn most notably is one to take note of.
Anybody else?
I was interested in Mr. Odom sharing. There's been quite a bit of conversation between you and the sheriff, and I know Mr. Nipper was able to be a part of some of that. Share with us what comments you will about what you anticipate, what direction there is. I know that at this time you've been very good at keeping us informed via emails and such, but on the sheriff's proposal for additional SROs, is there need for the board to be advised of anything specifically?
Something that our people on television may not know, SROs in Rutherford County come out of the sheriff's budget. You've been reading in the newspaper, maybe Williamson County and some of the others, it was part of the educational, but a number of years ago, because of jurisdiction and authority, that sort of thing, it was moved back. At one time it was shared, but it was moved back to the sheriff's budget. So basically at halftime we have an elementary now. So the sheriff is proposing to add for those schools that only have a halftime SRO, to add to get full-time in the elementary. There's also a supervisory position there, I think, because they have kind of a rule for every 10 or so, there's somebody that supervises part of the time. Some of our people now do some supervisory roles on the others. That's why there may be a person there and they may not serve another school, but they may be supervising for the other halftime. But it was 11. The 1,000,002 for the current year, and it was about $1,000,004 for if you add in Stewart's Creek High. Much of that for the first year was what he does on cars. Some of that, and he says that a lot of these people will probably be people that are in the sheriff's department now, in other areas, patrol and that sort of thing. And each year they replace a number of patrol cars. So typically your SRO gets the ones that are coming out, high mileage, coming out of the field because they can go and park and are not driving every day. And so part of that cost the first year was to replace some of those vehicle costs, outfitting the SRO, training for the SRO. All of our SROs are NASRO certified. That's National Association of SROs. And we've mentioned before that Rutherford County was the first school district in Tennessee to have SROs, 1993. Our SROs have been involved. I mean, Bill West was a national president of it, one of our SROs, and he was on television the other night. Our people have are trained others at other districts and places. They actually, been a number of years ago, actually I think were Department of Defense, and somebody took them to Guam, and they actually trained somebody in the Department of Defense what they do. So our people are highly trained, skilled, critical people to the school environment. I mean, principals will tell you what they do and how they relate to students and how the students relate to them. So I certainly support him in this effort. The question was asked the other night at the Budget Committee, basically what is the continuing cost. And so instead of that $1.2 million for the initial 11, not counting Stewart's Creek High, you came down in terms of one figure thrown out was $583,000. They immediately asked Ms. Nolan, what is a penny on the property tax rate? She said about $640,000. I was just kind of looking at their faces, but all of a sudden you saw those on the budget committee think, well, you know, we could get SROs everywhere for about a penny on the property tax rate. That's not a bad deal when you stop and think about that. Now the process again, not sure it'll take place before next year because, and you understand the county commission, they go back through their process committee. So they need to go back to that public safety committee. Even though public safety sent them there, they didn't do it with a formal vote. So I think he'll go back to public safety now, make the presentation of the numbers, refine it some, and then it will come back to the budget committee for another consideration. But for around a penny on the tax rate, Rutherford County could have full-time SROs everywhere, even though you now have 2 in every high school and 1 in every middle, but we could have it for all of our elementaries.
It's worth saying, I think, to commend past school boards, past county commissions, past school directors, for being so visionary that Rutherford County is in really much better shape than most systems are to go ahead and complete this. For example, the dedicated entranceways into schools. That's there. I know a lot of schools are now looking at that very hard, and it'll be a very big expense for them, but that's an expense that we've borne over the last 10 years or so in our system, and with every school that's been built. So a lot of people have done a lot of good work already to make our schools as safe as they can be.
I will add that I think with the heightened interest and conversation on security issues, I think there may be some ideas that come from our principals, office personnel. I'd certainly encourage the director to be sensitive to those, specifically in communications, the radio communications between office personnel and the SROs and how that takes place. It's beyond, my expertise or anything, but I'm intrigued by some of the ideas as I've talked to people around the system about their, what would really help us at our school would be something of this nature or that nature, and we may see some other ideas, and I want us to make sure we're sensitive to that.
We're actually doing a survey. Josh Kubley is doing that in collective force, our safety person. That's gone to all principals. Some very specific questions that we outlined that the committee came up with, and the committee consists of SROs. The SROs looked at our plans, where to place cameras and that sort of thing in the new Stewart's Creek High School. They've been involved from the beginning of that. And we're looking at things, and Mr. Clardy is adding things that might be of a financial nature, but you're absolutely correct. It's amazing how visionary our people have been in building these entryways and doing the buzz-in systems and the other things to provide that safety. So when I hear other counties talking about their cost, and you don't hear that other big figure out there to redo their buildings, it's because you as a board and your vision have done that over a number of years, and the county commission has supported that. But we do have a process of doing that. You'll find already in many of our buildings to where we can, classrooms are locked, that sort of thing during the day. I mean, I walked around Laverne High the other day with Mr. Ash, and we walked in some rooms, he has to get his key out and lock it and to go in. Your idea is certainly if somebody comes in to slow that process down as much as you can. So we're doing, our training is so realistic. You've never been in one of our SRO trainings. I mean, it's a little bit frightening if you're a part of it when you see the things that they consider and do it. But it does train our people and prepare them as well as you can.
Well, and it also, some courageous things. You mentioned 1993. That's the year that I started at Oakland High School when a fourth assistant principal was added to both Riverdale at Smyrna and Laverne and Oakland Riverdale. And that's when the SRO program started. And the hand-wringing that took place at that particular time for people in our community to think that we have armed deputy sheriffs in our building, it was really a tough thing for people to accept at that particular time. And I think, especially in the elementary schools, they do such a great job of letting kids understand that policemen are friends, that they're not looked at as the enemy, that's where the value happens to be. The counseling that they're able to do and so forth. But I think that's what we hope to raise with our society is kids recognize that policemen are for good and they're not the bad guys. And I think that the SR program certainly can do that. And over the 25 years we've had the program now, I guess it is, it really has turned into a thing that people have learned to accept. We all wish schools could be totally safe, but we're not totally safe where we sit right now today. We don't have an armed guard sitting in front of this building right now. So I think we have to recognize where reality happens to be and allow kids to be safe without feeling like that they're going into a fortress.
Anybody else? If there's nothing else, we'll come back Thursday, 5 o'clock. See everybody.